week's episode of Star Wars Rebels, Sabine Wren with Darksaber in hand decides to confront her family in an effort to recruit the Mandalorian forces to be a part of the Grand Rebellion to take down the Empire. Unfortunately for Sabine and her allies, the Mandalorians are a bunch of hardasses and immediately imprison them and take away their weapons, and that's because they're working for the tyrannical Gar Saxon. And this week's episode all ends with a massive confrontation between Sabine Wren, Gar Saxon, lightsaber to darksaber, and it all comes to an action-packed conclusion with only one of them leaving the battle alive. This week's episode of Star Wars Rebels was pretty damn fantastic. I've made it really clear in the past that I'm a fan of Sabine Wren. It's also kind of hard not to like the Mandalorians. Their entire culture and history is incredibly interesting, and we get to learn a lot more about it in this episode right here. And as Sabine said, meeting her family was not going to be that easy. Immediately as they try to go and meet these guys, they are taken out mid-air by the Mandalorians in their jetpacks. It's a really thrilling sequence, and I love the look of them as well. Sort of like a perfect combination between a Mandalorian soldier and a stormtrooper. It's gotta be that white armor, and it looks really cool. Also, apparently Sabine has a brother who goes by the name of Tristan, which is a name that just does not feel like a normal Star Wars name to me. A lot of the times in Star Wars, people have these like weird sounding names, but now that I think about it, Luke Skywalker, his name is just Luke. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking about it too much, but he just doesn't look like a Tristan to me, and he also is just got some really big issues with Sabine. All of her family basically sees Sabine as a traitor to their group. She left them, she gave up on being a Mandalorian, and started to join the rebellion, going up against the Empire, which are basically now the people that pay their bills. And a lot of that has to do with Gar Saxon, who in this episode basically plays in the shadows until he has an opportunity to get the Darksaber from Sabine, and basically plans just to execute both Kanan, Ezra, and Sabine right there on the spot, as well as her family. Basically, it's a big political play to finally get rid of that pesky Wren clan. And this all leads to this epic little lightsaber battle where Sabine is actually using a green lightsaber against Gar Saxon using the Darksaber. And they're fighting over this frozen lake, and it's pretty damned exciting. And Sabine actually ends up winning in the battle, almost cutting his arm off and having the chance to behead him, but she decides to go against that, a Mandalorian custom, because she's going to live for who she wants to be. And as she's starting to walk away, Gar Saxon is about to blast her, and boom! She is saved by her mother. And Gar Saxon is officially killed in this episode with a frickin' blaster shot to the heart. Some pretty hardcore shit right there. Now, this is the part of the episode that surprised me the most. Sabine is going to stay behind with her family in order to basically repair some old wounds and prepare for the ensuing chaos after the death of Gar Saxon. I have a feeling she's going to return to the Ghost crew, but it is very interesting that she just decided to leave out of nowhere and that they're just so okay with it. There's really not much time before she decides to leave. There's not much reactions from Kanan or Ezra. I expected Ezra to be a little more vocal about it, but he's not. Maybe this is just showing that he's matured and he understands the feelings of Sabine. Sabine in particular has certainly come into her own in the entire series right here. I think this is what it was sort of all leading to, where she's basically being prepped to be the brand new leader of Mandalore, a role that she doesn't necessarily want, and she even claims that she's going to find someone that do that for her, but we're just going to have to wait and see what that's all about. So, what's the rundown on this week's episode of Star Wars Rebels? After a couple weeks being on break, this was a really awesome episode. And again, demonstrating that Sabine, I honestly think, is one of the more interesting characters from the series. Her family backstory tied with all of the Mandalore history, which is incredibly interesting. How it all seems to tie into the previous episodes from Clone Wars. Just really, we're getting a great sense for what Mandalore culture is like. And that's really great, because in order to actually learn about these guys beforehand, you would have to read a lot of comic books and books. And that's something that I just don't have a lot of time for. But the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels has given me a much better understanding of the Mandalorian culture and why they're so popular amongst the Star Wars fan base. It's not just because of their cool and kick-ass armor like Boba Fett, it's because they're just as awesome as the freaking Sith and the Jedi. And Sabine leaving the crew this week just sort of like throws me for a loop. I didn't see that coming whatsoever. But I will say, though, that I loved a lot of the developments of this episode, and just getting to see Sabine's family was pretty interesting. Unfortunately, we never got to see, like, Ursa, her mother, like, in full armor. I loved the look of her Mandalorian armor with sort of, like, the black and gold going on, and I don't know what it was, but just like her voice actor just seemed a little too hammy in this episode. Like she was trying way too hard, or maybe not even trying enough. I know that's a weird thing to say, but I just didn't really dig her voice all that much. And the way she just sort of just constantly kept flip-flopping between, I'm proud of you, daughter, I hate you, daughter, I don't know. But again, that's just demonstrating like the roller coaster relationship that she has with her family and why she needs to sort of patch it up. There's also a lot of sequences with her and her brother. They have this little training sequence where basically it allows him to sort of express all of his rage right there on Sabine. He actually manages to defeat her in battle, but basically it's just him sort of giving in to his emotions and saying, like, you're a traitor. You shouldn't have left. This is all your fault. You have left us with no choice but to go along with Gar Saxon and the Empire, and there's no going back now. And Fen Rao was also awesome in this episode. I loved him. He was very mysterious and in the background for most of it, but towards the end when he came in and just busted through the glass and gave both Kanan and Ezra their lightsabers to help them in the final battle, that was a triumphant moment. He's definitely been, I think, one of the coolest Mandalore characters that I've ever seen. There's so many to get attached to at this point, and I like that they all have some distinctiveness behind them. That and this was just a cool-looking episode. I mean, Mandalorians in general are just really badass-looking characters. That's why they're so popular. That's why there's the Mandalorian mercs at, like, every single convention that I go to. Everybody has their own variation, and you get to see a lot of those in this episode. It also looked really cool on this, like, icy planet that we were on in this week's episode. So I like this one a lot. It was just a lot of fun, and I'm interested to see how long it's going to be before Sabine decides to come back to the crew. And if she does come along, she's probably going to bring some brand new friends. Like, she might actually be able to use the power of the Darksaber to bring all the Mandalorian clans together, and they could be the ones who could be instrumental in at least helping them against the Empire. Some probably won't go along with that, as Star Wars lore will dictate, but we'll just have to see. Otherwise, this was a pretty cool episode with some great action scenes, and getting to learn more about Sabine's family was also really cool. I loved this one, actually. I did have a problem with some of the pacing, though. I thought it was a little slow in the first half of the episode, and for some odd reason, I just don't like Ursa Wren's voice actor. I can't put my finger on it. To me, it just came across as too cheesy. So I'm going to give this episode a 4 out of 5. Check it out, Star Wars fans, and make sure to tell me what you thought about this week's episode if you did watch it in the comments section below, and what you hope to see from the rest of this season of Star Wars Rebels. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for all things Star Wars related and anime reviews. Leave me a comment or two. I'd love to chat with you guys. And make sure to like this video, give it a thumbs up, and share it with all your friends. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, may the Force be with you.